Hey everyone, welcome back to season 2. My name is Angie and I am so thrilled to introduce you guys to season 2 with today's guest. First off though, I just want to say welcome to season 2. Like, holy crap. I could not be more excited about all the conversations we have prepared to share, and I'm just so excited about all the guests who have been so open and honest about their journey, and we're so grateful for those who have opened up and for you guys, the ones who listen. As always, these episodes can be triggering for some, especially because we often go deep into the topics we talk about, so please take care of yourself throughout this season and previous season too. But without further ado, today's guest is Kailee Morgue. She was such a delight to talk to you guys, and she gave so much insight into her own mental health journey and how it looked throughout her career in music. Kailee has overcome so much, from being misdiagnosed and then rediscovering herself, dealing with hate online, and learning the importance of communicating your needs to those who love you so that they know how to love you right. There was so much to say, we couldn't help but to break this conversation down into 2 episodes. Find Kailee's music on all streaming platforms by searching her name up the way that you see it in this episode.
Have never done something like this where I talk about mental health and stuff, and like it's a very big part of my life, so I'm like really excited to get to do that, I guess, for my fans.
Yeah, I mean, it's really nice to give this platform to people like you to share about their mental health and their journeys, because I mean, art is so much vulnerability and so many stories. And when we listen to music, like when I listen to your music, I love the music and I resonate with it and I hear it, but I don't know your story behind it.
It's funny you say that, because I actually like got this comment the other day that was like, and I don't care about like hate comments. Also, do you mind if I curse?
No, I don't mind at all.
All right, because it's an issue, but I usually don't care about hate comments, but I got this one that was like, I was at your first show and like you've been such a amazing person for me to listen to, but over the years, like, you talk about pain so much and like you indulge in talking about like just bad stuff in your life. And I was like, it really does show you, like, I think it kind of opens the door for people to get to know you, but you're just like scratching the surface. Like, they don't really know anything about you, And because I was like, that's so interesting, because that's like why I make music, is to talk about that stuff. And I guess like I think it's healthy to learn to write about positive stuff too. But I was like, that's so interesting, because I think people know me and like have no idea who I am at the same time. And it's very weird.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine. And I think that like when you create music and you put it out there, so many people think that you're putting it out there for them. But the reality is, I mean, you're making music, you're putting down your feelings onto a piece of paper, whether they're positive or not so positive, or they're painful or whatever it is. I mean, it's your raw self,
Yeah, I feel like, like I think it's definitely started from a place of just talking to, like, for me, like I was just talking out loud with guitar and like trying to talk myself through mental situations. And it's become something that, it's like, if you want something else from me, I feel like there's just so many artists to listen to, and I'm like, oh my god, like it sometimes is a struggle for me to like get out of my own head. But I also do enjoy like storytelling and talking about things that have nothing to do with me, but it does get hard to like fully stray from how I feel, because I think I like see myself in so many other people too, in so many situations, that it usually comes from like a personal place.
Yeah, I don't think you have to ever kind of write for other people or write about a given topic. I think that that's the beauty about music and art. You get to express yourself however you want. There's no wrong turns.
Yeah, because I don't think there would ever be a point in time where I was like only writing about great stuff, because I also just think that that's not how life is. Like, we're gonna have, even positive songs of mine sometimes have like a negative feeling, and sometimes like the negative songs of mine like have like an uplifting turnaround, you know what I mean? So I feel like that's kind of just how I feel regularly. And like we can dive into all of it, but I have like very rapid mood swings. I'm like all over the place. So I think my songs, it would almost feel like untrue if I didn't do that, if I wasn't just like, oh, sometimes it's great, sometimes it's terrible.
Yeah, I would love to dive deeper into that.
Yeah, I also saw you have a degree in psychology, right?
I do. I actually just finished. I just graduated.
Congratulations. That's so cool. I was like, because I read the little brief thing and I was like, oh my gosh, like this is going to be so fun, because I'm so into that too. And my dad's a therapist. So I'm very like, I just yeah, I like being self-aware and like learning about all this stuff, and things that other people struggle with that have nothing to do with me. But yeah, through I've been like doing therapy for like 11 years. I've been on like so many different medications. I've had like 3 different diagnoses. Like it's been like a long um mental health journey. But there's been a lot of understanding through it.
Yeah, you mentioned being misdiagnosed or later diagnosed differently. And I can't even imagine what that must have felt like. I mean, it's like you're finally getting to know yourself, and then it ended up being completely something else. You have to change your narrative and like form your life around that. And that's kind of really difficult.
Yeah, like this, oh, I'm so excited to talk about. Well, it's like kind of sad, but it's just I'm glad that I get to like talk about this so that people can see like it's not all just like rainbows and butterflies with artists. But I like when I was 14, like 13, 14, I started experiencing like mental illness. I feel like for the first time, like I was like, wow, like I'm not happy. And I'm like, it's because I feel like as a kid you have this expectation of the world, and you start kind of realizing over time that you can't have everything your way. And so yeah, I was like first diagnosed with depression, and then I was like had a lot of self-harm issues and stuff like that, and I ended up in a behavioral center, and I like stayed there for like a week, and they put me on a different medication, and they're like, oh, we think you have bipolar. And I was like 14, so I was like, okay, like that makes sense. But like I'm sure you know, like a lot of times bipolar, if it's diagnosed at that young of an age, like it might not be a sure thing, because that's not something that you can usually track unless like it's you've had it for longer into adulthood, so you can see if it is mania and depression and all this stuff. So I spent till I was 20 thinking I had bipolar and being like, okay, cool, like I have to take mood stabilizers and I have to expect this mania and depression. And I think it almost made me like live into it and like feel like I was expecting those things so they would just happen.
Yeah, like a self-fulfilling prophecy, basically. Like you're telling yourself this is who you are, and now it's becoming.
Yeah, it was a very weird time, because I think I like almost like induced some of that mania and some of that depression because I just was expecting it. And I was like, well, that's just what happens. I think also like it being a chemical imbalance made me think it was something that I couldn't, not that I can control it, but it's not something that I could cope with or try to get better unless I took medicine. Like I was like, well, like I'm just stuck with this and whatever. So that's why when I got re-diagnosed with BPD, which basically happened because I met my current boyfriend, and he was like, we were like talking about all my mental health issues, and he's like, you know, like I think you have BPD, not bipolar, because you don't really have like the mania and depression. So I went to therapy, and they're like, oh yeah, you have BPD. And so that's like a whole other thing, because BPD is something that is about your own trauma and like your behavior. So it's not like you can take meds and stuff to help you, but I was like, wow, this is going to be a completely different journey of just trying to like unlearn my defense mechanisms from being traumatized. It was like, so yeah, it's been like that's what I've been doing for like 3 years now, just figuring BPD.
Looking back at your life, do you now see how you could have had BPD earlier on and it was like gone unnoticed?
Oh yeah, because I there's like some key signs of BPD that I definitely had and didn't like notice until I was diagnosed, like the favorite person thing. Oh
Mhm.
my God. Like when I was 12, that's when I had like my first favorite person. My first favorite person was my best friend in middle school. And I remember like feeling that like my whole entire world revolved around her. Like everything she thought of me was almost more real than like what I thought of myself. And I remember like when I was in high school and like starting to get older and like experiment with my sexuality, I was like, oh my God, was I like in love with her? Because I just like I loved her so much, and I was like obsessed with her. And I noticed from that age on, I always had a favorite person, whether it was a boyfriend, a best friend, a girlfriend. Like it was always somebody that like met me and like shook my world up, and like everything I liked was about them. Like I was definitely mirroring, and I didn't know, because I am also the type of person that like when I start dating somebody, I like want to be like them, because I'm like, I want to understand everything that you like, and I want to be the thing you like, and I want to like never disappoint you. And like so I just start changing because I put so much weight on like this person's opinion. And I think I like before I even had a best friend, that person was like my dad for a while, because I have my stepdad's the one that's a therapist, but my dad like we weren't as close, and he was a little bit more critical of me. So I think I like put all of that weight on him, as like what he thought of me was the truth. And I think it morphed into that. So now whenever I made friends or this or that, like they became the most important thing. in my life. That was like definitely, I was like that was some BPD stuff, and like definitely like the deep fear of abandonment and like self-sabotage because you want to like seem like you care less so that they can't hurt you, like that type of stuff.
Yeah, no, that's fucking hard because how are you supposed to find out who you are when you're like, when you feel so attached to all these different people and you admire them so much and they're your favorite people. I can only imagine how difficult that is. Does that impact the way that you write music? Like, do you tend to write about other people's stories?
Yeah, I usually like when I feel like people that listen to my music can tell, like I'll write about certain people or like the way that I feel through my music will be affected by the people around me. And like like my current boyfriend, for example, I met him and 5 days later I wrote a love song about him that was like so personal and like deep. And I almost, yeah, I kind of like create ideas of people sometimes and I like romanticize them through my music. And sometimes um I like villainize them in my music because it can be like a lovey, sweet outlet, but it can also be like I hate you so much outlet. So um, either like whatever I'm feeling, I think it definitely sometimes translates in my lyrics because I am like scared to say those things to the person. So or like maybe it's somebody I don't talk to anymore and I just want to like write a song about it, like what I would say to them. So it can definitely impact like how I write.
It's funny that literally reminds me of your song Loser, where you literally said, and I wrote it down. Dad said I look like a fake. Um, I mean, you're taking upon these emotions from other people and applying them to yourself and your own music. And it's like the line between who you are and, your looking glass self. So how other people perceive you, it's like, it's difficult because it blurs. So when you write something like Dad said I look like a fake, is that scary to put out there? Because I mean, it's blunt, it's out there, and like people know who you're talking about. And that's
Oh yeah. I mean, also like I know that he's gonna hear it, and that makes it weird too. I've definitely like written about my dad multiple times. Like there's a song that never came out that was like I performed at my first show. It was like my mother's proud and my dad is quiet. Funny how he made me a riot. And it's like usually just because my dad and I have had like a weird relationship where he's the whole reason I do music because he's so passionate about music. He plays guitar, he sings, but like he also is very traditional. And it's like, well, you need to go to college and this and that. So even now, like 4 years deep into doing music, like the last time I went to his house, he was like, well, like you're still gonna have to go to college eventually and like you're gonna have to start over and stuff. So yeah, it's like it's been a weird kind of up and down relationship. So it's scary, but I also feel like I don't that's one of those things where it's like I don't know if I would tell him how I feel about that and that it hurts me. So like I'm just gonna say it in my music. And I say it vague enough, like you're saying that it's some people are like, oh, like, dad says I look like a fake and like it's not that deep. But to me, I'm like knowing that I've sent my dad songs before where he's like, I don't like anything about this. And like you should be making this type of music. And you know what I mean? So it's I think it's a deeper even than what it seems like, but I just kind of am like, well, it helps me to write about that. And like, I guess that song too was completely inspired by my dad, like saying loser my whole life. Like he was like, oh, well, like they're a loser or like, if you don't go to school, you'll be a loser. And it was used in a very like, that's like the word, like you're not doing anything with your life if you're a loser. So that's why I like the whole song is basically about that. It's just like, cool. Like if I'm a loser, then I'm a loser, but at least I'm like doing something I'm happy doing. And like,
yes.
um, yeah, I was like, I would just rather embrace it because then that kind of doesn't give that word power anymore. Cause I've just been like, cool, like if that's what it is, that's what it is. So
It's really beautiful. I mean, like neutralizing these hurtful words that we've grown up around, that's really difficult. Like it's still something I struggle with. It's something everyone struggles with. I could only imagine it's still something you might struggle with.
yeah, it's definitely weird being like, because I'm by no means am I even like that popular or like that many people know about me, but you still, no matter what, are gonna get people that don't like you. And that can be so weird sometimes, especially when another part of BPD is having like identity issues. And I think sometimes when people project an idea onto you, it's hard to know if that's true or not. Like, 'cause I struggle so much with like not knowing like being scared that I'm being perceived as like stupid or pretentious or this or that because I'm like, no, I'm not like that. But needing the control over it almost makes it worse. And I think it just gets difficult for me sometimes to get so much feedback from people that don't know me and starting to think like, am I like that? Or like, is this song feel like this? Or even though I always, like we were saying, like I started making music for me, like the image I project now more than ever is me. Like when I first started, not so much, because I was like, I don't know what to do. I'm 18. Like I have no idea how to do music and stuff. But now I've really like understood that, especially now that I've been diagnosed with BPD, like I have to be in charge of like who I am, and I have to be the one deciding that, you know, because for a while I wasn't.
Yeah. So would you say now at this point in your life, you're kinder to yourself and you're more patient with yourself?
Yes. Well, yes, in most ways, some not, because I think like I'm way more accepting of like knowing that I guess I'm gonna feel not so great sometimes, because I think before I was just like I wanted to indulge in certain feelings and I wanted to feel bad and I wanted to feel insecure and I wanted to hate myself, because that's how I kind
Mm.
of started that's how I started like showing signs of my like mental health stuff, as I was self-harming. It was a lot of internal hatred.
Yeah.
And I think that over time I was just like, I have to, like, maybe this is not the right word, but I was like, I have to like grow out of that, because I can't treat myself like that forever, and like and get through that, and just like, because I don't want to have this like resentment or this guilt or like this feeling over me for the rest of my life. So I was like, I have to, especially if I love other people in a certain way, if I want people to love me in a certain way, like I have to give myself the same like room and of to be free of judgment that I give to other people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I think it's huge. Like if you judge yourself over everything, like it almost kind of does bleed into your relationships, because this expectation you have of yourself is hard not to project that onto other people.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah, more than ever, I'm like way better with just like letting myself be me, and even and kind of getting rid of the idea, because with social media and all that stuff too, it's hard to feel like this version of you has to be cool and like presentable and pretty and smart and funny. And I'm like, well, yeah, I am all of those things, but like I don't have to be. Like I'm just me. And
Yeah.
like removing myself from being an artist, removing myself from being on Instagram is like really important. But I think like I was saying, the only thing that I think I still am hard on myself about is probably like accountability. And like when I have my BPD episodes, I can lash out pretty bad and like say pretty hurtful things and stuff. And that's still like, I should be hard on myself for that. But it's like, it sometimes reignites that self-hatred, because I'm just like, why can't I stop doing that? Or like, and even though I know it's a defense mechanism, like I said, it with bipolar, it's like, well, I can take medicine and do this and that. But BPD, it's just like mentally relearning. And so I can be hard on myself in that way, just knowing what's happening and not being able to stop sometimes, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's really difficult when it's so internalized. I mean, the way you said a couple of minutes ago, you were like, I don't even have that many people who know me, but you do. You have a lot of people who know you. So the fact that you even started that with that little disclaimer, kind of putting yourself down, that's such like, I feel like that's such an internalized way for you to almost be hard on yourself, humble yourself. And it's like, you don't need to do that.
It definitely feels like maybe it's just me protecting myself. So that way, like if anybody watches this and is like, nobody knows who you are and stuff, it's like, but I like you said, like, why do I shouldn't have to do that. And whoever says that, like, why do I care? If they don't know me, fine. But I definitely do a little bit of like work to kind of brace myself for like people not liking me and stuff. And that's just something that had to like get through, I guess, being in the public eye. So it's definitely like I have subconscious little things like that that I think I'll do. But
And it's like, I feel that it's so perpetuated now that, you know, we have to be super talented and super smart and super funny and like this and this and this to earn love. But that's just not true. Like you can do absolutely nothing. You can lay in bed, be no one, be nothing at all, and you still are worthy of that love. Like you
yeah,
don't owe anything to anyone. And that's really, really difficult to learn because you've already internalized that self-hatred to yourself, which is sucky. Like you should love yourself through all of that.
like me and my friend Cheney, well, her artist name is Cray, like we talk about this stuff all the time, because yeah, I think like people have this idea of who we are and stuff. And I have to remind her, because she's like literally one of the most beautiful people I've ever seen. And and she gets all this validation from people. She gets, you know, and she's like, like, why do I not feel great and stuff? And I like always have to remind her and remind myself, like, our purpose is not just to sit here and be pretty. Our purpose is not to just dress up and be like, cool, do you think I look good? Like, we have so much more to us than like what we appear to be, and like if people think that we're smart enough or pretty enough. And I do think it's like something that sounds cliche, but like you have to remind yourself that, because sometimes it does feel like that's all people care to look for in you. And
Right. Absolutely. And it's not like you go out and you're like, oh, I'm going to be friends with this person because they're pretty or whatever. Like maybe when we were 12, we did that, but like we're all past that. We're all at a different age now where we look at someone's soul and who they are way more than their appearance or their skills or their talents. Like not everything is a job interview, you know? And I feel like you really portray that message through Still, which I would love to dive into, because you said like, I can't do anything, so why do you love me, in that song. And I literally spoke about this with my friend yesterday, where it's like all this external validation doesn't actually really change how we feel inside. So my biggest struggle is an eating disorder right now. And, you know, people can tell me, oh, but you don't look like you think that you look like, blah, blah. And it's like, no one's really said anything too mean to me in the last couple of years. So there's no point. I mean, there's no reason for me to think this way, but we internalize these feelings from such a young age, and we are our biggest enemies. So like external validation really doesn't do too much for ourselves, because it's ourselves that we have to work on. And I don't think that we have to be hard on ourselves. We have to be patient with ourselves, because it's a process and it needs love and nurture.
Oh, of course. Yeah. People, I think it also, like, personally, I have like imposter syndrome too, where I'm like, even if people are validating me, I feel like they're validating a version of me that I'm like manipulate. Like, I'm like, here, I want you to see this version of me. I want, like, I'm taking a picture in this angle, and I'm, you know, like, you're kind of letting them see what they want to, which is like basically social media summed up. It's just like the things that the way we want people to see us, we can control. And so that's why I think it's like it's a whole different thing to be validated, like when it's somebody that like knows you and talks to you and sees you on a daily basis. And like I've dealt with like eating disorders as well. Like I think sometimes even subconsciously, but like I won't even know sometimes, like, and I'll be in a different headspace in my life, and I'm like, wow, like I look very different, and like I just accidentally kind of stumbled into this like like just this headspace of not being so hard on myself and allowing myself to not care what my body looks like and stuff, because I have like body dysmorphia too. And so sometimes I'll literally I'll be on like completely different ends of the spectrum, where sometimes I'll be like, I'm like scrawny and I look so bad, and then I'll be like, I'm overweight, and it's like you just kind of don't know, and it feels weird to be validated by people that don't see you, I think. And that's why, like, when I hang out with my friends and stuff, like I was saying, Cheney, like if she ever is like, oh my god, he looks so cute, like that means a lot to me, because like she's with me and like knows me. Or like if she says like, you're so caring, or in a way that like I think it's sometimes people are going to see whether or not they're going to see you whether or not you want them to, if they're like with you that much. And I think for them to like peel back those layers and still love you is like, that's kind of what that song was about. Because at that time I was going through so much at that time. My ex-boyfriend of like 3 years, he was my first love, like my first boyfriend, he passed away. And
Sorry.
Oh, it was like a while ago, but it was that year. And then I met Ricky like 2 months later, and I was just grieving that. I was getting over like going hard with alcohol. So I've been sober for like 3 years now, but I was just like going off the deep. My dad's an alcoholic too, so I was just like, I can't do that. So I like stopped that, and then I got dropped from my label. So I was like, cool, like I feel like shit. And then also like I like shaved my head 6 months earlier, so I didn't feel good about myself, but I was just kind of in this. And then I also realized I had BPD. So I was like, cool, all this shit's like dumped onto me. I feel like I'm not talented. I feel like I'm like so depressed that like no one wants to be around me. I don't feel pretty. I don't feel like I have any value. And Ricky, like that's my boyfriend. He basically was like one of the first people I've ever dated to like, and to this day, like he'll tell me this all the time, where like just transparently being like, there's nothing that you could do that would make me leave you. He's like, obviously, like, you know, like, I want you to be loyal. Like, if it gets really bad, that's a different story, but like, we don't really have that type of relationship. So he was like, I just want you to know anything that ever has to do with your mental health, like career, like any of that, I'll be there. And that was like the first person to make me feel like that, besides like my family and stuff. And so that song was just like this, like pouring out of like, I feel like a failure, I feel like just like so unworthy of all this stuff, and like, you still want to love me. And also I think that that love felt different because I knew that he didn't have to, and like I knew that all the shit was going wrong. So that's why like now it's, I feel so good like having somebody that stuck with me through all that, and just really like, yeah, like just was like, I don't care, like I'm gonna be with you, I don't care. So now I'm like, anything that happens, it really really feels like I have my partner, you know.
Yeah, and that's such a beautiful thing. I mean, having a support system is so underrated. I mean, it's difficult to find those people that we can lean on when we need to lean on. And it's like they don't expect anything from you. They don't expect numbers or money or like
Yeah.
a certain look and stuff. And it feels like it's difficult to find those people sometimes because of social media, because of what we put out there, because what we put out there isn't necessarily who we are. So the person that people fall in love with isn't even, well, at least it doesn't even feel like you. And that
Yeah.
can also play, I assume, that could really play into your BPD because, again, the line really blurs, right?
Yeah, well that's kind of what I was saying about that imposter syndrome. Like it's like, I feel like I try my best to project myself in my artist project. Like I try to be as me as possible, but there is like I don't think that without sitting, like hanging out with me and like seeing me regularly, that people would ever really know me.
Yes.
So it gets hard to kind of like understand that. It's definitely a weird thing, and I think that people, it doesn't seem like it's hard to deal with, or like it's just whatever, but it, I guess having the identity issues I have, it definitely feels weird sometimes. And like I often like my one of my fans just posted this like photo today of all of my hair changes that I've had in the past like 3 years, and it had to be like 25, and I was like, oh my god. Like I always feel this need sometimes to like keep changing and keep trying to like be this best version of myself, so people don't get bored of me, or they like, if I, as long as I'm reinventing myself, I'm just getting better, or I'm not like being stuck in this version of myself that people might end up hating. So that's why I like made the effort last year to like stop caring about that shit, like just dress how I want to dress, which is why, I mean, like I'm like 90s normcore, I don't give a shit anymore.
You look bomb though. You're looking great.
And then I like I think my hair's been orange for like 6 months, which is like the longest I've ever done that, because I was like, I need to stop like letting myself like get into this habit of being like, well, I need to do this or people aren't going to care, like if I change my hair I'll get more likes, and if I do, you know what I mean. I was just like, I like, why do I care so much about that? Because it's like, if I didn't have Instagram, I probably would just be so much more, I'd probably have brown hair and be like, cool, I don't need to worry about like the things I get insecure about. Is so weird because I know if I didn't have Instagram, like my biggest insecurity is my nose, or like I'm like, oh, like is my jaw too wide, or like those things that you think about, that it's like, if I wasn't in like forced to be in front of all these people, like would I really even care, you know? So
Mhm.
it's so interesting. And even without the platform, like women in general, or just people in general, like I think it's so easy to like feel like you have to live up to this thing because of social media, whether or not you have 5 followers or like 500 or 500,000. It's like there's this like subconscious need to like live into this type of woman that is appealing to everybody.
And
So
it's so weird that like we take advice from random 15-year-olds that we don't even know who commented on a picture. And it's like, I don't know, personally, I tend to take those things so personally sometimes. And I catch myself doing it now. But before I was like, no, this one person somewhere across the world said this one thing. And like, I don't even know who they are, what they look like, but like, I'm going to internalize that. And
yeah, because people like another example the other day, this isn't more of like a physical thing, but I posted this this picture that was like, how are we feeling about the new song, like, and this girl was like, not gonna lie, I think it's really bad. And I was like, I shouldn't care. I was like, what do I, like, nobody's gonna fucking, if somebody doesn't like it, I don't care. because not everybody's gonna like your music, not everyone's gonna like you, and that's reality. But for some reason I was just like, that's so mean. Like that hurts my feelings, probably because it does come from such a personal place. But I always have to remind myself, like, once I release something, it's not mine anymore. It's like, this is everybody else's to interpret how they want, to feel how they want about it. Like if they fucking hate it, that's not my responsibility to make them like me. Like I made this for me, and now it's everybody else's to decide how they feel about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So in those kinds of cases, would you lean on your favorite person, and would you be happy that you have a favorite person?
Yeah, it depends on the person, because I have had some favorite people that like if I turn to them for comfort or validation and they don't give me that, it can make me feel like those negative things in my own head and that like sometimes I'll get on social media are true. So like I had a relationship like before I met Ricky, where this person, like I would turn to them, especially because like I was like at their house when my ex-boyfriend died, and like they were, yeah, like I turned to them for that comfort and I didn't really find it. And they were being very judgmental and just saying like, well, like I would rather deal with like bipolar than the shit I deal with. And like I why do you care so much that so and so died? And I was like, oh my God. So that's like one of those situations where it can be really unhealthy, because I feel like a normal, like a rational person would probably be like, oh, like that's kind of fucked up that they said that. But for me, I'm like, oh, like that's true. Like why do I care so much? And like I kind of start to just, let's like, I think they're like a god, and I'm like, everything they say is true, and like everything, like I have to put them before me. So sometimes it can be very unhealthy because I can be codependent and like take everything to heart. So if somebody's like, well, you should do this, or you should, like, I think I had like my ex-boyfriend like one time was like, well, like I don't like when you have short hair, so I like grew out my hair, because I was like, okay, cool, like I'll just kind of start doing that stuff. But if my favorite person is more like Ricky, like where he's just very unconditional, like that's why I felt free to like not live up to this thing where I'm like, I don't have to do this and that and like wear crazy outfits and like, you know, like wear my makeup every day and do this and that, because like that's somebody that when I turn to him, like he's just like, oh, like you know that you're smart, you know that you're talented, like who cares if they don't like your song, like you know that's a great song.
Yeah.
And that's what helps me, is like somebody that I think it's just like somebody that grounds me and is like, this is reality, like you are who you are. And he also like reminds me like, I love you, but like don't let that be more important than your relationship with yourself, because
That
that
is so good.
because people definitely, I think, know or knew in the past that I would put them before me. And I think that that definitely like bit me in the ass sometimes, because it was just like, I would, like my first relationship I was in, like he probably broke up with me like 20 times. And like every single time I'd take him back, because I was just like, I like, my value is in whether or not you want me.
Yeah.
And so now I've like made, also just in friendships, I've like made the mental decision to like try to feel out whether or not like they want something from me, or if they like have their best interest but not mine, because like that's really important. And I've definitely been like a pushover my whole life. So
Damn, I'm sorry that you had to even deal with that, because you shouldn't. You seriously shouldn't. And people should be able to listen to your needs and what you want. And I get that that can be really difficult sometimes, though, because when I'm upset personally, I hate it when people are like, it's going to be okay. Like, look at the silver lining. And I'm like, no, I just like really need to be upset, and I don't need you to do anything. I just need you to listen. And like my best friend had a really hard time processing that, because she's a natural helper and she wants to give advice. And I'm like, the best way you can help is literally just don't say anything, just
yeah,
listen. And I think that's the biggest thing in any kind of relationship, to be able to listen to what the other person needs. And, you know, when do they need validation? How can they best help the other person, and put their own needs aside to help you through difficult moments? I mean, when your ex died, that should not have been the response. And that's a terrible response.
yeah, I do think it like teaches you a lot though. That's why I'm like, it's not, I don't want to like, because that's not even also like shitting on that person, because I think that they like there comes this thing also over time where like when you get into situations like that, you stop reading it as like this person's fucked up and you're like, that was inappropriate, but like I know that that's coming from them being insecure and
Yeah.
being scared that I cared more for this person, and now that he's gone, that like maybe they aren't my person, and that I'm like realizing all of this. And so I think that it was from an insecure place, and I think once you start like training your brain to view responses like that, you can kind of I guess like read deeper into that. And that's why like with my dad, even our relationship has gotten better, because I know that like he's had a very, very bad childhood, and a lot of his responses aren't just like because he wants to be an asshole, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely something I've gotten like better at over time, but it's hard to put aside like your annoyance or like anger and replace it with like, well, let me just empathize a little bit.
Well, that's the thing though. It's hard to find that balance, because once you do start to empathize, you start using their poor actions or their poor words as a justification. So you're like, oh, you know, they went through something hard, so that's why they said it. And you shouldn't make excuses for them either. Like, understanding is one thing, but making excuses is another thing. And it's like, there's so many things to balance out that it's just so difficult to be in any kind of relationship, friendships, family, significant others.
You definitely have to like, I think, yeah, you can understand and empathize, but hold the person accountable. Like that's like the basis of it. I think like every good friendship and relationship, because like even me and Ricky had to learn that, because I was so scared of like being abandoned or like dealing with something like that when I was grieving and going through life, and like that phase where I was just saying like everything felt like it was dumped on me.
Yeah.
Where if I freaked out about something and I handled it the wrong way, he's like, I know you're hurt, and like I'm empathizing with that, but this is like, if you want this kind of comfort and softness from me, like approach it like that, because I know that that's what you want, but you're angry. He's like, why are you angry if you're sad? And I was like, oh, that's true. I was like, I guess I'm just like, it's like this
Angry and sad at the same time.
Oh, you definitely can, but I think it's like before, like I think a couple of years ago, like I only showed my sadness with anger, because like I would bottle it up until I was like, why is nobody comforting me? Why is nobody like, you know what I mean? So I had to start like being like, if I want to be held or I want to just cry, like I just have to ask for that. You know what I mean? Because he was like, I don't know why you like don't, if you want me to hold you, like just tell me that. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I was like, oh, you're right. I don't have to be so mad that you didn't read my mind, you know?
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I think that's, again, a natural human thing to kind of expect others to know the way we need to be loved. And that is difficult to process, and kind of, it's okay to be like, this is what I need. Like sometimes with my roommates, I'll literally be like, hey, I feel left out right now. And I know that like, it's not your intention to feel left out, to make me feel left out or anything, but I just need the validation that like, you guys still love me. And it's like these ugly feelings, quote unquote, ugly, they're natural feelings. I think that finding the right people and surrounding yourself with the right people, they will help you through those feelings and give you the validation and the love that you need the way that you need it. And they will hear you out and listen to you, but you shouldn't be afraid to vocalize it either.
I also think another big lesson I learned the past few years is that most relationships and friendships like that, like love is, I think we all just think there's going to be like this perfect person that comes along and does every single thing right and checks off all of our boxes. But I think it's definitely like a learning process, and knowing like in long-term relationships too, it's definitely like how you receive love and give love is going to be different, and how they receive love and give love is going to be different. And like you definitely have to learn that, because sometimes I guess it'll be easy and it's like, cool, we click, but there's never going to be someone that's just perfect, and you have to like work at it and like figure out what best. I also feel like it's to be more self-aware and like do all this research on it. Like I'm sure you're really good at communicating now because of all this research and like psychology and like knowing, like, you know what I mean? Like I feel like knowing what's happening, you're like, oh man, like I can just, because I think so many people like don't care to learn stuff like that, and I think it helps so much when communicating to like put those dots together.
So that wraps up this episode. Thank you so much for listening to the first episode of season 2, and I'm so excited for the journey all of us are taking together. Tune back in next week to hear the rest of our conversation with Kailee, where we talk about competitiveness in the music industry, individuality, sobriety in an industry overtaken by drugs and alcohol, and a lot more that I don't want to spoil for you. So I will see you guys, or you guys will hear me next week.